Hey, geometry. So today we are working on notes number 5 on angle relationships. While you're going through the video, remember your how to learn from a video skills. So pause the video if you need to, rewind and try it again. What else was there? Find a different video if this one isn't making sense for you and you need a different explanation. So use all those skills as you're watching this video. Oh, and make sure you're also actually filling out your notes while you're watching the video. That's also important. So, our learning target for this lesson says I can find the measure of unknown angles using angle relationships. So we have 5 basic angle relationships that we talk about in geometry. Our first one are adjacent angles. So adjacent angles are kind of like neighbors. They live next to each other. So our definition is 2 angles that share a side and a vertex. So if we look at angle 1 and angle 2 in that first example, they both have this vertex right here, and they both share this side. So that side is part of both angles. That vertex is the vertex for both angles. Then if we look at the example angle 3 and angle 4, they both share this vertex. And the side that they share is this side right here. So these diagrams might actually look a little bit familiar. These are kind of like the diagrams, or actually a lot like the diagrams we had been using for angle addition. So in all of those angle addition problems, your angles were adjacent angles. They shared a side, they shared a vertex. Our next angle relationship is for complementary angles. Complementary angles are angles that sum to 90 degrees. So we can see that in angle D and angle E. These angles, if I add them together, 23 plus 67 gives me 90 degrees. So I could say the measure of angle D plus the measure of angle E is 90 degrees. In my other example, I have 2 different angles here that are adjacent, they share a side, and they have that little box in the corner, which is what tells me those angles add to 90 degrees. So my first angle is angle ABD, and my second angle is angle DBC. So their shared side is BD, that ray, and their shared vertex is B. And I can say these angles, if I was writing my angle statement, I would say the measure of angle ABD plus the measure of angle DBC is equal to 90 degrees. Our next angle relationship is supplementary angles. Supplementary angles are 2 angles that add to 180 degrees. So in our example over here, we have angle F and angle G. These angles are not adjacent, they're not touching each other, but they're still supplementary. 143 degrees plus 37 degrees would give us 180. So I can say the measure of angle F plus the measure of angle G equals 180. Our next angle relationship is a linear pair. So a linear pair is 2 adjacent supplementary angles. So this takes 2 of our previous definitions and puts them together. Adjacent means they share a side, they share a vertex. They look like an angle addition problem. And supplementary means they add to 180. So when we're talking about a linear pair, it's called linear because it makes a straight line. So if we look at our example, I have angle ABD right here, and I have angle DBC right here, and together, those make up that straight line ABC. So if I had to write an equation for this one, I could say the measure of angle ABD plus the measure of angle DBC equals, so I'm adding my adjacent angles together, that makes sense. And I know they have to equal 180 degrees because they are supplementary and they make a straight line. Our last angle relationship are vertical angles. So vertical angles are non-adjacent angles formed by intersecting lines. So non-adjacent, that means they don't share a side and a vertex. So they're not right next to each other. They don't have any sides in common. And when we have vertical angles, our vertical angles are congruent. They are equal to each other. So if we look at our diagram, I need non-adjacent angles formed by my intersecting lines. So if I start with angle 1, well, angle 1 is adjacent to angle 2. They share this side. And angle 1 is adjacent to angle 4. They share this side. But angle 1 is not adjacent to angle 3. They don't share a side. So I know that that pair of angles are vertical. And I can say that angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. But I have another pair of vertical angles in here. If I look at angle 2, angle 2 is adjacent to angle 1. They share this side. Angle 2 is adjacent to angle 3. They share this side. But angle 2 and angle 4, those are not adjacent. They don't share any sides. So I can also say that angle 2 is congruent to angle 4. So when you have vertical angles, when you have intersecting lines, you're usually going to get two pairs. And one way that I like to think of vertical angles is that they make a V. So if we look at angle 1, here's one V. And then my opposite angle, angle 3, that vertical angle makes another V. Same thing for angle 2. Here's a V on top, and angle 4, V on the bottom. So those are our 5 angle relationships for geometry. So what I want you to do next is, on these try-it problems, identify the angle relationship for each pair of angles. So let's look at the first one together, and then I'm going to have you pause the video and try the rest. So my options are that these angles are adjacent, so they're neighbors, they're next to each other. They're complementary, they're supplementary, they are a linear pair, or they are vertical. So if I look at example 1, and I go back to look at all the pictures that I have here in my definitions. Well, these look like, I don't think these can be vertical. They don't look like this shape. I don't have things that are intersecting like that. I see this straight line on the bottom, so maybe they're a linear pair. They look kind of like this. They don't look like they're complementary. I don't see any little boxes in the corner. So my only other option is that they're either adjacent and maybe they're a linear pair. So maybe they're supplementary. So if I look at my picture, we are looking at angle 1, this guy right here, and angle 2, this one right here. Well, those angles together, they don't make a straight line. We're missing this part. So these can't be a linear pair, and they can't be supplementary because they don't make a line. So this pair is just adjacent. So pause the video, try filling in the rest of these, and then unpause when you're ready to check your answers. All right, did you pause the video? I hope you actually paused the video and tried these problems. Here are the answers. For some of these, you could have more than one right answer. So like for example, for number 6, these are a linear pair, but our definition for linear pair means that they are adjacent and they are supplementary. So we could say all 3, but just saying they're a linear pair is enough information. And actually, I got one of these wrong now that I look back at my answers. This pair, angle 3 and angle 4, those are not adjacent. That pair of angles, these are vertical. So now that you can identify, okay, notes part 2. Now that you can identify angle relationships, we are going to use those relationships to solve problems and find missing angle measurements. So we'll do a couple of these together, and then I'm going to have you pause the video and try some on your own. So in our first example, for each problem, we need to determine what the angle relationship is, write an equation, and then solve our equation. So for all of these problems, we're going to be solving for the variable. So either solving for x or solving for y. So in this first one, my angle relationship, I see that little box in the corner. That tells me these are complementary. If I write an angle statement for these, here's one of my angles. So I could say angle, oh, nope, not angle. I can say the measure of angle GFH plus my other angle is this guy right here. So plus the measure of angle HFE. And because those are complementary, I know when I add them together, they equal 90 degrees. So now I can substitute the information I was given in the problem. So this would be 2x plus 7x equals 90. So if I combine my like terms, 9x equals 90, so x has to be 10. Let's do number 4. Number 2, I want you to try on your own. Definitely draw a picture. So let's do number 4 together. So these angles here, here's one of the angles, here's my other one. Those angles make a straight line. They share a side. So these angles are a linear pair. If my angles are a linear pair, that means when I add them together, they equal 180 degrees. So if I write my angle relationship statement here, I can say the measure of my red angle, angle GHJ, plus the measure of my green angle, angle IHJ. These are a linear pair. I know they add up to 180. So when I substitute the information that we were given, 3x plus 4 plus 13x equals 180. Combine my like terms. 3x and 13x, that's 16x plus 4 equals 180. Two-step equation, minus 4 on both sides. 16x equals 176. Divide by 16. X is 11. So pause the video and try number 2 and number 3. For number 2, make sure you draw yourself a picture so you know what's going on. And for number 3, they already give you the picture, so you're all set. Okay, so if you didn't pause the video the first time, do it now. Pause the video, try the problems on your own. But for number 2, your angle relationship is supplementary. You should end up with x equals 20. For number 3, our angle relationship is vertical. You should end up with y equals 27. Okay, and this last chunk of problems on here, you are using this diagram right over here that looks pretty complicated. It's got a lot of angles happening. So you are going to name some different angle relationships. So this part I want to go over together the next time that we're in class. So make sure you try questions 5 through 10. I am hoping that we'll get a bunch of different answers that we can talk about next class, because there are lots of different pairs of vertical angles, for example. You can find lots of pairs of supplementary angles, so there are lots of right answers for these problems. So try 5 through 10, and then work your way through the rest of today's playlist. You have a practice assignment and a learning check for today.